Oh, welcome back. We've had a slowish but steady volume of calls while we've been off the air. It's difficult to say really at the moment how good the information is. We've certainly had some interesting calls on 3 of our photocall cases, and there's already some news to report on 2 of our incident desk cases, and there's some good stuff on those armed attacks in London.
Mixed response on the first one. Let's start with the tragic death of a father. He was getting ready to take his daughter to school. Nimel Samarasina had put in an alarm system at his home after neighbours saw people trying to break in, but plainly someone was determined to see him dead.
Help! Please, someone help!
David Fielding, this had all the hallmarks of a contract job, as though someone had wanted him dead and had paid someone to kill him. And indeed you had phone calls from people who've heard sort of rumours on the street.
Yes, we have. And I would urge several of these people who have contacted us either here or at the police station to come back. We will listen to rumours. We are prepared to meet anyone, anywhere, to hear what they have to say. What we must find out, if not tonight, then certainly by this weekend, the reason why Mr. Samarasina was murdered and who was responsible.
I know that some people have given their names. Others may be reluctant to do so, but may be less reluctant when they know about the reward. There is a very, very big reward indeed on this case, isn't there?
Very substantial reward. It's quite unusual. The family of Mr. Samarasina put up the sum of £10,000, which will be paid for information which leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for Mr. Samarasina's murder.
If you didn't see Crime Watch, the main programme earlier on, let me just say there was a white Orion car which seems to be connected with the killing. It was seen several times, at any rate, around the house. And there was also a man seen in an alleyway behind Stafford Road in Wallington. And if you know who this is, even if he's completely unconnected with the killing, do please give us a call. Sue.
Well, let's start with photocall now. Let's go to photocall with the Building Society robber in Greater London to start with.
Yes, unfortunately not very encouraging. Only half a dozen calls, some of which do suggest names, but we need to know, if you know this man, where is he now? Please call.
And secondly, IPEC and Eric Saunders, who are wanted in connection with a series of deceptions.
Yes, terrific response. Over 50 calls, including members of both families have called, giving addresses both here and abroad for both of them. Ex-work colleagues have called with background information, and in addition numerous sightings across the country. So there's plenty for the officers to work on there.
And the former chess champion, Brian Ely?
Yes, wanted by South Yorkshire Police in connection with some sexual offences they're investigating. Lots of sightings and several new lines of inquiry which will be followed up, but we need to know again, where is he now? Please call.
And lastly, there was the man trying to buy a camcorder in Mansfield with a stolen cheque card, credit card.
Again, very good response. Over 30 calls to the studio and good quality too. 8 callers have suggested the same name, and a large proportion give the area in which he can be found. Also, information is being collated on his associates, and these are being followed up as we speak. So, good news.
Thank you, Jack.
Frankly, we never expected a big response to our next case, and those predictions have been borne out. It's a slow response so far on the murder of the 14-year-old from London, Tracy Mead. Tracy had been bunking off from school, playing truant if you like. Someone like her was seen wandering the streets, and the next day Tracy was found stabbed and drowned in a canal. Now, the reason, Colin Wright, that we didn't expect there'd be a huge volume of calls is because you suspect that whoever knows much about this is going to be confined to a small group of people who knew Tracy.
I'm sure that people do know about this, and they're very close to Tracy. They're probably at home now worrying about it. I don't expect them to call at this very moment in time, but tomorrow I would like them to get in contact with me.
Now, you have had some calls. Is there anything you can tell us about? Or
we've had a few calls that may have identified the young lady in the pie and mash shop, but what we'd really like to establish is where she was during those 2 weeks. We've not had many phone calls on that.
This is a girl who was seen with someone who looked very much like Tracy Mead in a pie and mash shop in Shepherd's Bush the day before she died, but it could be quite unconnected.
It could be totally innocent. We need to get in touch with this young girl just to find out who she was, of course.
You believe this was a prank that went wrong. You don't, I mean, it looks as though there was some sexual motive to it, but you don't believe that there's some sort of lone rapists stalking London, that this was somehow people of her own age group.
Tracy always went with people of her own age group. She would have gone to that place with other people. I believe that probably what started off as a prank ended up in a terrible disaster.
Well, if you're a friend of Tracy, now's the time to really be a friend, please call. Either tonight or just in the next day or two, but please make sure you call. Sue.
Well, next to our appeal on a stack of stolen property, we had some younger guests in the studio earlier today modelling identical clothes to those stolen from a shop in Greenwich Market. And we've had a fairly good response. A couple of callers have spotted these clothes on market stalls with a distinctive label ME on them. And we've had just one call on the 18th and 19th century picture frames. Well, these are worth £70,000 altogether. They're very valuable, so if you recognise them, please do call. We've had just a few calls on the towels. These towels were destined for Marks and Spencer's and never got there. They look a bit like blankets, but they're very distinctive towels, the first batch ever to reach this country. If you recognise these, please call us. Most of the calls we've had on this have been on these Wrangler t-shirts, which seem to have been very quickly distributed all over the country. Several market stall holders, once again, have called, noticing the words "Made in Egypt" on the labels. Again, this was the first batch ever. Finally, on the silverware and the miniatures, again, just a very few calls on these. So do you recognise the Elliott family crest? Please do call us if you recognise any silverware with this crest on it, or indeed if you've seen any of these items tonight.
Stacks of information come in on incident desk. David, let's start with the murder of Jim Morrison, who was the constable stabbed as he was chasing a robber through Covent Garden in London last December.
Tragic case, Nick, but I think we've made a big step forward. We looked for the owner of this makeup and we think we've now found her.
This makeup, let me say, all this was in the handbag that was recovered and didn't belong to the woman who owned the handbag, so it was...
That's right.
Something else stolen that night.
That's right, and we now are pretty sure, in fact almost certain, that it was stolen just a few minutes before the attack at the Maple Leaf Public House in Maiden Lane in the West End. What we want is anyone who was in that public house, the Maple Leaf Public House, the 13th of December, it's a Friday evening, to come forward, because it's possible they have seen the man who stabbed Jim Morrison, and we want their information.
You still haven't identified where those come from, perhaps
No.
somebody else's handbag.
This is a Ventolin inhaler and some contact lens case. These don't belong to these items that we now know the owner of, so anyone who had these items stolen on that night we'd like to hear from too.
OK, this Curricle robbery in Norwich, we had an artist's impression there and a lot of calls on that.
Yes, about 90 calls, mostly concerning the origin of this baseball cap. Well, what we really wanted was to link that baseball cap with the artist's impression that we showed, and indeed a lot of our callers have called in and think they've done that, so we'll be following them up and hopefully identify that individual as well.
We had another artist's impression for a rape in Hove, and I saw at least one call from a man who was pretty sure he had evidence about who'd done it, somebody he thought was involved in other sex attacks.
That's right. We've had about 30 calls on that altogether, many of them with names, unfortunately none of them the same, but we only need one lead into whoever that is and we'll be onto that straight away.
OK, the Blackpool pawnbrokers robbery, an abduction as well as an enormous theft of jewellery.
Yes, 60 calls there, nearly all with names, but I think we've got 4 cases now on incident desk tonight where the offenders hopefully will be turning to jelly because we'll be on their trail very soon.
OK, David, thank you. Sue.
Well, now to those terrifying attacks in London. There have been 7 now in as many weeks. The most recent was only last Friday, and police are quite sure these men are going to attack again.
Oi!
Well, Mr. Fenton, what sort of response have you had?
Well, we've had well over 50 calls, a large number of them offering identities to both of the men, also from some witnesses who haven't come forward yet regarding the wine store offence, and also some other offences have possibly been disclosed which they may be responsible for. Some very interesting calls.
Specifically then, what have you had on the 2 men? Take that first man first.
The first one, we've had about a dozen calls in respect of him offering identities.
Because it's very distinctive. It's amazing that somebody hasn't put one name to him.
Yes, he's 20s, early 30s, 5'8" to 5'10", slim build and a very slim looking face.
Somebody must recognise him. What about the second man?
The second man, the Moroccan-looking man, sorry, of mixed race. We've also had about 12 calls in respect of him, again offering identities, and some calls offering possible places where he may be.
Very important. We need some calls on that BMW. The robbers still have the BMW, the registration number E547JJM. If somebody can find that, then the robbers are presumably at the moment quite close by.
Yes, they've still got that. They used it in offence only last Friday.
So if you can spot that, I know you do feel there's a lot of urgency in this case.
Yes, I think they're desperado types, and I think they will keep going until we stop them.
As I said, there have been 7 attacks in as many weeks. Please do call if you know something.
Well, that's it so far, and the lines, in fact, will be closing in about 25 minutes' time. But we'll give you local numbers in a moment. They're on CFAX, incidentally, on page 626, if you've got CFAX facility. Sometimes the best calls come into incident rooms, of course, several days after the programme. So with any luck, we'll have a great deal more to tell you in a month from now. Meantime, don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.